The massive stellar guard station hung like a gleaming pearl against the velvet backdrop of space, its crystalline domes and steel spires catching the light of the binary stars it orbited. Inside one of these domes, lead caretaker Tom Rogers stood before the most intimidating parent-teacher conference of his career. Across the table sat Ambassador Crix, her scaled hide rippling with iridescent patterns that humans had learned to recognize as anxiety. Behind her loomed her mate, Commander Vex, whose razor-sharp claws could tear through reinforced steel as easily as paper. They were razor claws, the apex predators of the Andromeda Arm, feared across 3 galaxies for their hunting prowess and warrior culture. And they had just enrolled their only child in Tom's human-run daycare center. "Your species has an unusual reputation," Ambassador Crix said, her translator converting her clicking speech into smooth English. "The other races speak of your gentleness with young ones. Even the most dangerous species trust you with their offspring. We wish to understand why." Tom smiled, remembering how he'd started this unlikely career. 10 years ago, humans had just joined the Galactic Union, and everyone expected them to be warriors, given their survival on a death world. Instead, humanity had shocked everyone by excelling at caregiving, especially for alien young. "It's quite simple," Tom explained, pulling up a holographic display of the daycare center. "Humans evolved as social creatures who collectively cared for our young. We're one of the few species whose infants are completely helpless for years, requiring constant attention and protection. This made us extremely adaptable caregivers." The razor-claw pair exchanged glances, their natural weapon systems, capable of destroying a small ship, temporarily retracting in a show of trust. "But our young are predators," Commander Vex rumbled. "They bite. They scratch. They hunt for sport. Most species cannot handle them." Tom's smile widened as he brought up footage from the current playgroup. "Actually, that makes them perfect for us. Humans are incredibly durable by galactic standards. We evolved on a high-gravity world with large predators. What might seriously injure other species is just a scratch for us. Plus, we understand the importance of play hunting for predator species development." The footage showed human caretakers expertly handling young ones from various predator species, letting them practice their hunting skills in safe, controlled environments while teaching them crucial social skills. Ambassador Crix's scales shifted to a pattern indicating deep thought. "And you can truly handle different species? Their various needs? We've had to adapt to raising human children in all kinds of environments and situations throughout our history," Tom explained. "Whether it was in Arctic conditions, deserts, or dense cities. This adaptability lets us understand and meet the needs of any species." The meeting continued as Tom addressed their concerns one by one, showing how the center's facilities could accommodate young Razorclaw-specific needs. By the end, even Commander Vex's battle-hardened features had softened slightly. As they prepared to leave, Ambassador Crix paused. "One last question, Caretaker Rogers. Why do you do this? What does humanity gain?" Tom thought of all the children he'd helped raise over the years, scaled, furred, feathered, or crystalline. "We do it because we love it. Because every child, regardless of species, deserves to grow up feeling safe and cared for. That's something humans understand deep in our bones." The Razorclaws left with enrollment papers completed, and Tom began preparing for his newest charge. Humanity had found its niche in the galaxy not through force of arms, but through force of heart, and he wouldn't have it any other way. Little Rex, as the young Razorclaw was called, arrived at the Stellar Guard Station's daycare center early the next morning. His scales shimmered with excitement and nervousness as his parents delivered him to Tom's care. Unlike adult Razorclaws who towered over humans, Rex was only about the size of a large dog, though his retractable claws could still slice through standard-grade metal. Tom had prepared the playroom specially for this moment. The reinforced walls were covered with soft, replaceable padding, and various prey holograms darted around to help young predator species practice their hunting skills. Other children were already there, 2 young shadows talkers practicing their camouflage abilities, a crystal wing hatchling floating near the ceiling, and several other species that would make most beings run in terror. "Welcome, Rex," Tom said warmly, kneeling to the young Razorclaw's eye level. "Would you like to meet your new friends?" Rex's scales flickered with interest, but he stayed close to his parents' legs. Ambassador Crix gave her child a gentle nudge with her tail. "Go on, little hunter. Show them your strength." The young Razorclaw took a few tentative steps forward, then froze as one of the Shadow Stalker cubs suddenly appeared in front of him. The cub, named Shadow, was already reaching out with one of its phantom-like limbs in greeting. Tom watched carefully, ready to intervene if needed. But his years of experience had taught him when to step in and when to let the young ones sort things out themselves. This was definitely a moment for the latter. Rex's initial startlement turned to curiosity as Shadow demonstrated their ability to fade in and out of visibility. Soon, they were engaged in an elaborate game of hide-and-seek, with Rex using his natural thermal sensing abilities to track Shadow while practicing his own stealth skills. The crystal wing hatchling, Star, drifted down to join them, adding an aerial element to their play. Tom smiled as he watched the natural formation of hunting parties, something crucial for young predator species to learn. His human colleagues moved smoothly around the room, their movements carefully choreographed to maintain safety while encouraging natural development. "Remarkable," Commander Vex muttered, watching his son successfully coordinate with Star to ambush Shadow. "He's already learning pack tactics." "That's the beauty of mixed-species play groups," Tom explained. "They learn from each other's strengths and adapt. It's actually very similar to how human children learn through diverse social interactions." As the morning progressed, Rex became more confident. When snack time arrived, Tom demonstrated another aspect of human adaptability. Each child received species-appropriate food in a way that respected their hunting instincts. For Rex, this meant hunting his nutrient-rich protein cubes in a specially designed puzzle box that required skill and patience to open. When Ambassador Crix and Commander Vex returned that afternoon, they found their son leading a complex mock hunt with his new friends, his scales glowing with joy. More importantly, he had learned to moderate his strength when playing with physically weaker species, a crucial skill for any young predator in galactic society. "He's a natural leader," Tom told the proud parents. "And he's already learning the most important lesson we teach here, that strength isn't just about physical power, but about knowing how to use it wisely." As the Razorclaw family left, Tom could hear Rex chattering excitedly about his new friends and asking when he could return. Another successful first day, another step toward building trust between species. In a galaxy full of differences, the human gift for nurturing was building bridges no one had thought possible. The crisis began during what should have been a routine space station maintenance cycle. The artificial gravity flickered, causing the daycare center's safety systems to activate. Unfortunately, the containment fields meant to protect the children also trapped them in separate areas of the playroom. Tom's training kicked in immediately as alarms blared through the station. Young Rex was separated from his hunting party, his scales flashing distress patterns. The crystal wing hatchling Star was trapped near a malfunctioning ventilation shaft, while Shadow and the other predator young were scattered across the room, each contained within their own safety bubble. "Stay calm, everyone," Tom called out, his voice steady despite the chaos. His human colleagues were already moving to their emergency positions. "Remember our safety drills." The station's automated voice announced, "Warning, gravity system malfunction detected. Emergency protocols engaged. All non-essential personnel evacuate immediately." But Tom and his team weren't going anywhere. These children were their responsibility, and humans had evolved to protect their young at all costs, even if they weren't technically their own species. Rex was showing signs of panic, his predator instincts urging him to slash through the containment field, which would have dangerous consequences for both him and the station's atmosphere. Tom needed to act fast. "Rex, remember our hunting games?" Tom called out, catching the young Razorclaw's attention. "This is just like finding the hidden prey. Focus on your breathing, just like we practiced." The young predator's scales slowly shifted from panic to concentration. Tom's voice kept him grounded as the human worked his way through the chaos to the environmental control panel. Meanwhile, Lisa, another caretaker, was keeping Star calm by leading the young crystal wing through a series of aerial maneuvers within their confined space. The exercise kept the hatchling distracted from the dangerous ventilation shaft nearby. The Shadow Stalker cubs had instinctively tried to phase through their containment fields, which could have caused severe energy feedback. But Mark, the third human caretaker, quickly engaged them in a modified version of their favorite stealth game, turning the crisis into a challenge they could understand and handle. Tom's fingers flew across the control panel, his knowledge of both the station's systems and predator psychology working in perfect harmony. "The gravity will stabilize in exactly 30 seconds, he announced. "Everyone get ready for a countdown, just like when we practice our group pounces." The children, even in their stressed state, responded to the familiar exercise. Their natural hunting instincts, which could have made the situation catastrophic, were instead channeled into focused anticipation. 3, 2, 1. The gravity normalized, and the containment fields dissolved smoothly. Instead of chaos, the children maintained their positions, looking to their human caregivers for guidance, a testament to the trust that had been built. Within minutes, Ambassador Crix and Commander Vex burst into the daycare center, having heard about the crisis. They found their son not only safe but actively helping calm the younger predator children, mimicking the techniques he'd learned from his human caregivers. "You stayed," Commander Vex observed, noting how Tom and his team were already running diagnostics while keeping the children engaged in constructive activities. "Of course we did," Tom replied, helping Rex demonstrate a calming breathing exercise to a still nervous Shadow Stalker cub. "That's what we're here for." The station's crisis had revealed something profound about human caregivers, not just their ability to handle dangerous young, but their instinct to protect and nurture even in the face of danger. It was a quality that resonated deeply with predator species, who valued both strength and loyalty to the pack. News of the daycare crisis spread quickly through the Galactic Union's communication channels. The video footage of human caregivers protecting and calming various predator species young during a station emergency became the most watched stream across 3 sectors. The Galactic Council called an emergency session to discuss this unprecedented display of interspecies cooperation. Tom found himself standing before the council, surrounded by massive holographic projections of representatives from dozens of spacefaring races. Rex sat in the observation gallery with his parents, his scales gleaming with pride as his favorite human caregiver addressed the assembly. "What we witnessed was not extraordinary, not for humans," Tom explained to the gathered representatives. "On Earth, our homeworld, we have countless examples of humans caring for dangerous creatures. We've raised orphaned tigers, rehabilitated wounded bears, and helped injured wolves return to the wild. It's part of who we are." The swarm queen of the Hive Collective buzzed thoughtfully. "But these are not mere animals. These are the young of sentient apex predators. The risk factor is exponentially higher." "With all due respect," Tom replied, pulling up displays of human history, "humans have always taken risks to protect the young, any young. It's hardwired into our psychology. When we see a child in danger, we don't calculate risk factors. We act." The council chamber erupted in multilingual discussion. Ambassador Crix stepped forward, her scales displaying formal speaking patterns. "My own child was in that daycare during the crisis. The humans not only maintained control but turned a potentially traumatic experience into a teaching moment. They demonstrated why they are uniquely qualified for this role." Commander Vex added his own testimony, describing how Rex's behavior had matured significantly under human care. The young Razorclaw had learned to channel his predatory instincts productively while developing empathy for other species, a combination many had thought impossible. The Crystal Consortium's representative chimed in, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns of agreement. Our hatchlings have shown unprecedented social development under human care. They're learning to interact with organic species without causing unintentional harm. Tom watched as more parents came forward with similar stories. The Shadowstalker Alpha spoke of cubs learning stealth control. The Hive Queen described improved colony integration. Each testimony painted a picture of human caregivers bridging gaps that had existed between species for millennia. Perhaps, the council elder mused, this is why humans survived on their death world. Not just through strength or intelligence, but through their capacity to nurture and protect, even in the face of danger. The council session concluded with a historic decision, the establishment of a human caregiving initiative across all major space stations and colony worlds. They recognized that humanity's gift for nurturing the galaxy's most dangerous young was not just a curious phenomenon, it was a crucial step toward true interspecies harmony. As Tom left the council chamber, Rex bounded over to him, followed by several other daycare children who had come to watch the proceedings. Their various parents watched with a new understanding as the human effortlessly managed the group of young predators, his gentle authority a stark contrast to their natural ferocity. 6 months after the Council's decision, the Human Caregiving Initiative had transformed galactic society. Tom stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Interspecies Youth Development Center, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. Each vessel carried young ones and their parents, all seeking the unique care that only humans could provide. The center was a marvel of adaptive architecture. Massive biodomes recreated various planetary environments, allowing young predators to develop their natural abilities while learning crucial social skills. In one dome, Rex and his friends were teaching newer arrivals the basics of controlled hunting behavior. The change in him is remarkable, Ambassador Crick said, joining Tom at the window. Her scales rippled with maternal pride as they watched Rex guide a young night hunter through a stealth exercise. He's becoming a bridge between species. The success stories were everywhere. Young Shadowstalkers learned to use their phasing abilities responsibly. Crystal Wing hatchlings developed fine control over their energy emissions. Even the notoriously aggressive Steel Fang cubs were learning to play without causing serious injury. But the most significant change was in how the predator species viewed each other. Young ones who would have been natural enemies in the wild were forming lasting bonds under human guidance. Tom's methods were being studied and implemented across hundreds of worlds. We've received a request from the Void Prowler Empire, Lisa announced, joining them with a holographic display. They want to establish a human-run caregiving center in their home system. The request was significant. Void Prowlers were among the most isolated and dangerous species in known space. Their interest in human caregiving methods represented a dramatic shift in galactic relations. Tom reviewed the footage from various centers across space. Human caregivers were adapting their methods to each species' unique needs while maintaining the core principles that made their approach successful. They weren't just teaching young predators to control their hunting instincts, they were teaching them to use those instincts to protect and nurture others. The latest studies from the Galactic Science Academy are fascinating, Ambassador Crix noted, sharing data on her tablet. They're calling it the human nurture effect. Species under human care are showing accelerated development in both physical control and emotional intelligence. The implications were revolutionary. Predator species that had been historically isolated due to their dangerous nature were now becoming active members of the galactic community. Their young ones were growing up with a deeper understanding of other species, breaking cycles of fear and mistrust that had existed for generations. The arrival of the Void Prowler delegation marked a historic moment. Their massive black ship, designed to strike fear into the hearts of other species, docked at the Interspecies Youth Development Center. Tom stood ready with his team, while Rex and several other older Predator youth served as greeters. The Void Prowlers were living shadows, their forms barely contained within the visible spectrum. Their reputation for aggression had kept them isolated from the Galactic Union for centuries. Yet here they were, drawn by reports of human caregiving success. Their leader, identified only as Deep Shadow, emerged with 3 young ones. The youngsters were wisps of darkness that constantly shifted shape, their natural form too fluid for most species to comprehend. But Tom saw what others missed, the subtle signs of nervousness in their fluctuating patterns. "Your reputation precedes you, Caretaker Tom," Deep Shadow's voice resonated directly in their minds. "We have watched. We have studied. We see how you transform fierce young ones into balanced beings without diminishing their strength." Rex stepped forward, his scales displaying a formal greeting pattern he'd learned from his diplomatic parents. The young Razorclaw had grown into his role as a student mentor, demonstrating how predator species could channel their natural abilities positively. "Welcome to our pack," Rex said to the Void Prowler young ones. His use of their cultural terminology, taught by Tom, immediately caught their attention. The shadow forms stabilized slightly, showing interest. Tom began the integration process with a technique he developed specifically for the Void Prowlers. The center's lighting adjusted to create safe shadow zones where the young ones could retreat if overwhelmed, while strategically placed light patterns created natural boundaries they could recognize. "Your hunting instincts are part of who you are," Tom explained to the Shadow Young. "We're not here to change that. We're here to help you master it." The breakthrough came during a supervised play session. One of the Void Prowler young ones instinctively tried to phase through another child's shadow, a potentially fatal action for most species. But instead of panic, the human caregivers guided the moment into a teaching opportunity. They showed how the same ability could be used to protect others by detecting and intercepting environmental hazards. Deep Shadow watched in amazement as their young ones began to interact safely with other species for the first time in their race's history. "We have been feared for so long," they communicated, "that we forgot there might be another way." The success with the Void Prowler young ones rippled through galactic society. Species that had been traditional enemies for millennia were watching their children play together under human supervision. The Human Caregiving Initiative was accomplishing what countless peace treaties had failed to achieve: genuine understanding between different predator species. 5 years after the first Razorclaw enrollment, Tom stood in the graduation ceremony of the Interspecies Youth Development Center's first class. Rex, now nearly adult-sized, led the procession of graduates. Behind him came Shadow, Star, and dozens of other young predators, including the Void Prowler youngsters who had once been considered too dangerous to integrate. The ceremony hall was filled with parents from species that had once been mortal enemies. Ambassador Crix and Commander Vex sat beside Deep Shadow, their former hostilities forgotten as they watched their children receive recognition for completing the program. "Today marks more than just a graduation," Tom addressed the gathering. "It represents a fundamental shift in how predator species interact with the galactic community. These young ones have learned not just to control their hunting instincts, but to use them in service of others." As if to demonstrate this point, Rex stepped forward to share his experiences. His scales now displayed complex patterns that reflected both his Razorclaw heritage and the diplomatic skills he'd learned from humans. He spoke of how the human approach to caregiving had taught him to be both fierce and gentle, protective and nurturing. "We came here as hunters," Rex said, his voice carrying the authority of a natural leader. "We leave as guardians. The humans didn't just teach us control, they showed us how to use our predator instincts to protect and nurture others." The impact of the Human Caregiving Initiative had extended far beyond childcare. Trade routes that had once been considered too dangerous due to predator species territories were now safe passages. Diplomatic relations had improved as former enemies found common ground in their shared experience of human caregiving. The Galactic Science Academy's latest research confirmed what many had already observed. The first generation of predator species raised under human care showed remarkable improvements in impulse control, empathy, and leadership abilities. More importantly, they maintained their natural strengths while developing these new skills. As the ceremony concluded, Tom watched his graduates demonstrate their abilities. Rex and his hunting party, once rowdy youngsters, now moved with practiced precision in a choreographed display of controlled power. The Void Prowler young ones showcased how their shadow-phasing abilities could be used for search and rescue operations. "You've changed the galaxy, Ambassador," Crix told Tom as the demonstrations ended. "Not through force or fear, but through understanding and nurture." Tom smiled, watching as the next generation of young predators arrived for their first day at the center. "We didn't change anyone's nature," he replied. "We just showed them how to be the best version of themselves." The success of human caregiving had revealed a profound truth. In a galaxy full of fearsome predators, sometimes the most powerful force wasn't claws or fangs or tactical superiority. It was the simple, unshakable human instinct to nurture and protect the young, any young, even at the risk of their own safety.